podcast. I'm Maya, the Amerlin Bee.
I'm Marcel, the Gleeman.
This is the show where we talk about all things Wheel of Time. If you're joining us from YouTube, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. Leave a comment so we can chat things out. And today we're going to be kind of doing our final overview of season 1 of, I guess, the first season of the show.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this season overall. It was kind of divisive, I think, in some ways, but in other ways, I think a lot of the fandom seemed to kind of coalesce around it. But how did you feel about it overall? I guess is a good way to start.
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think I cried every single episode, which is probably a good thing. And I fell in love with the characters and the world, and like it was just really cool to see it all happen. And I felt really invested in the story, and I feel like it brought a lot of new things that were really interesting to get to see. I'm also just fresh off of a reread of The Eye of the World, so I see how it might have been frustrating for people who like wanted it to be more like the books, but I like the deviation a lot, so I'm a happy camper.
I think
What about you?
I think I am as well. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think there were some things that were I was critical of through the season. And I think I don't know. I guess we can kind of just decide to consider like the stuff about COVID, the production shutting down, the fact they lost an actor throughout like midway through the season, as why some of the latter part of it kind of seemed to lag, I think, in some ways. But overall, I kind of felt like the performances really won me over, because I think pretty literally every character that was introduced, I was interested in and wanted to see more from. So I think that's a good sign. And it felt like the wheel of time to me. So I think that's counted among what you need for a good adaptation of it. So it worked for me. But yeah, I think we'll see where they go with it in the next season. I'm definitely ready and excited for the next season. I do have some concerns about what the next season might bring. And this is just like knee reactions to like changes that I'm like, I feel like in some ways, and we can get to this when we talk about how it ended, but I'm wondering, things are going to necessarily have to change that I'm worried about. But without getting
I'm
into
worried too.
spoilers, but I mean, there's just changes that I can't conceive of how they're going to do, how they're going to adapt it going forward because of the changes that happened, particularly towards the end. But yeah, overall, I'm excited, and I think generally I liked it. So
Yeah, I echo your feelings. um, so I think we kind of talked about how to do an overview of everything and give our reactions to things. And I guess we should start by like talking about how the show was structured in terms of like the director blocks, and every 2 episodes were directed by a different person, and we're all done in order from each other, which is another thing I think that made the switch to COVID kind of like that switch more apparent, I think, in the like narration of the story, just because of those blocks too. So you want to,
yeah,
should we dive in from there?
yeah. I'm gonna butcher some of these names, at
It's
least.
all good.
But Uda Brieswitz was the director for the first 2 episodes, and full disclosure, I saw the first two in the live perform or the premiere viewing. They did a bunch of fan viewings the week before the series actually premiered, And so I got to go see one, and I think that that experience kind of like colored how I felt about the first two episodes.
Ooh, tell us
But
what that was like,
I
though.
mean, it
Was it
was pretty
like
cool.
Twilight screaming in the theater, or was it silent?
It was pretty noisy. The people that were there were pretty excited to see it, and there was a decent amount of people dressed up and Wheel of Time costumes and cosplay, which were really cool. And I got to interact with a lot of those people. Um,
Cosplay?
yeah, there was mostly like I think there was mostly Matt's, which is always Matt's, and I saw a bunch of Aiel, which was surprising. And there was a few Gleemen there with the full colory cloaks
Oh,
from the
that's cool.
books. But yeah, so I mean, I think my initial thoughts of that first my first viewing of it was that first episode, and kind of not vibing with how it ended. I liked most of how the setup of the characters was done. And again, all the way through, I've loved the performances. I don't think I have really any criticism about the performances. But watching it on the big screen, I remember because it was basically you did the first episode, then they had like a sort of like behind the scenes look at basically the what they did on the X-rays, the like behind the scenes looks at the episodes. But between episode 1 and 2, they had that. And then I remember thinking while that was going on before the second episode started, I was like, it rubbed me the wrong way how quickly they left the two rivers, and that no one really had a problem with it. Aside from maybe Matt had a little bit of like, you know, he wasn't really sold, but I don't know. It all kind of wrapped up really quickly, and I think that was a time constraint that they had, that I don't think they could work around. But once you get into episode 2, I was really more set at ease because I thought, okay, this seems more like what I was expecting. It slowed down a bit. They dealt with some of the character interactions, and they actually dealt with the one of the bigger plot points that I thought was weird from the first episode, where they left the two rivers, and you're supposed to understand that they like specifically the four of them, Rand, Egwene, Perrin, and Matt, were being targeted, and they agreed to go with Moraine as a way to divert the Trollocs that were coming, from coming into the two rivers. And the second episode addresses that in a little bit, at least, where Egwene is saying at some point, well, they did follow us. They didn't go into the two rivers. So I was glad that they kind of, at least, they didn't really address it in the first episode, but they kind of were like, it is clear that they're chasing them and not
Yeah.
interested in the two rivers. But
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, there's no way that you would have known that there was anyone being targeted except maybe Rand,
yeah,
like with the way that the Trolloc attack went down.
like directly to his house versus everyone else was
Yeah.
just in the town square or whatever.
Yeah. Or like maybe like, I don't know, maybe they could have done something where like they made it really obvious that the Trollocs were like avoiding the other Emmons Fielders or something. But
Right. I think in hindsight too, you really only get to see Lan, who's, this badass fighter that we're supposed to understand is a really good fighter. We only see him fight really in this one episode. And you see him fight, I guess, again in episode 4, I think.
yeah.
We really don't get to see him fight any other time. So, I mean, it does a good job. And I think we talked about it too when we mentioned this episode in the beginning, of our show, where we both like the way they were fighting with Moraine and Land, but you really don't see it again. So I don't know. I think that might have been something they should have included somewhere else in that
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, my experience was a little bit less worrisome because I got to watch 3 episodes in a row. So I kind of
Right.
got like in like an hour or maybe like 2, 3 hour span, like just like get an idea of what the pace of the show overall is going to be like. And it's just like, okay, we're going really fast.
Right. And you kind of knew that had to happen because the series is infamously known as such a huge series of 14 books and a prequel. I mean, it's just, there's a lot that they have to consolidate. So it made sense that it was going to be quick, but I thought they should have taken some time in different places on that, at least in that first episode. But yeah, I think this one was good. I think this block was, um if I'm going to rank it, even though I'm talking bad about ranking, but I would say it's probably my, it's not the worst one of them, but I think it does a pretty good job of setting up the series and kind of getting you invested. I just wish it would have spent a little more time in some places, but other than that.
From what I've been seeing on Twitter, it seems like episode 1 might be one of the episodes that had the most cuts taken from it, like that infamous Egwene coming out of the like painted water
Right.
shot that was in all of the promo, and I was dying to see it, and everybody was like, is it her like trial at like
Right. I have no idea.
It's like, nope, no clue.
It drew me in because I was just like, what's happening here? It was so different from the books and everything. And
yeah, I should have read the pilot script, but that's okay.
yeah, and for viewers, there was a pilot script. I believe it's on Reddit now, and it might have been circulating on Instagram and Twitter too. But essentially they had, I think actually the first episode was slated to be a 2-hour episode. And then ultimately they wanted 10 episodes this season. So a 2-hour pilot and a 10 episode season. And so that's what was actually written.
So good.
Yeah, that was apparently what was actually written. And they had to cut it to 8 episodes, obviously, and an hour max per episode. So I think that did hurt it. And I think that so yeah, on Reddit and Instagram and Twitter, they're circulating a script that was apparently the original first episode that was written, that had a lot more scenes in it that were cut, I'm assuming for time, but yeah, I think it shows. But I think what we get here is still good. I still like how the characters are set up, and particularly in this first block, I think we really get a good setup of the Two Rivers folk, or I call them Two Rivers folk, but basically our main candidates as the dragon. I think those get set up pretty well here, and you kind of get invested in their stories going forward. So yeah. Do you want to go to the next block, or do you have more for this?
Yeah. I guess my one other thing would be the villains, like some of like the early villains. Like I really loved how they introduced the Children of the Light and kind of made them like so much more like terrifying, and like make you understand why they're disliked in a very like visceral way.
Yeah, I think they did really well with the Children of the Light. I think one of the things that a lot of the fandom, I don't know, it was, there's a bunch of people on Reddit and Twitter that respond to the show negatively because it's not so similar to the books, and those people have been dubbed book cloaks because people are associating them with the White Cloaks, who are notoriously the jerks of the Wheel of Time. And like I think that's
purists fair. To a fault, right?
Exactly.
That's basically.
But ironically, the White Cloaks are changed a little bit here. They're still jerks, but their uniforms are different, and kind of the way their organization is set up is different. And they seem to be, like you said, they're a little more dangerous and seemingly capable than the books. So I think those are all good changes. And I think Valda particularly was pretty menacing and intriguing as a villain.
So next block were episodes 3 and 4, Place of Safety and The Dragon Reborn. These are directed by Wayne Yip. I really liked this block. You were saying before we started recording that it's your favorite block.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's my favorite because you get, and especially in episode 3, you get the sort of like the character development for the main people from the Two Rivers the most, and I really liked that aspect of the show. The whole, especially Matt and Rand on the road.
it's not how
There's such a
roads work.
yeah. I thought like especially Barney Harris's Matt. He just, I don't know, like he almost, if I had no inclination as to who the dragon was, I kind of would have bought, because the show tries to
Mhm.
show you this in the next episodes, right after, especially after Shadows Waiting episode 2, that he might be the dragon, especially in episode 4 and 5. But I think that, I don't know, that interaction with Rand and Matt on the road is such a big part of the book, and I think they do such a good job of it. And the whole dynamic that they meet the dark friend in the Embryn Springs, and when they meet Tom, the Gleeman, I thought all of that really worked really well. And it kind of, that was because like I said, I watched the first 2 episodes and then I had to wait for like a week to get to the episode 3. And once I got to episode 3, I was just like, okay, this really feels like the Wheel of Time to me. Like
Yeah.
that stretch of episodes definitely, into episode 4 where we meet the Aes Sedai, and
Mhm.
we get Loghain's story, which I loved Loghain's introduction and the way they show his power, in the male channeling power, and that all felt really really right to me, and really all felt like the Wheel of Time. So I think that's kind of why I like this block the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think my favorite thing about episode 3 is just that, like, it brings in that dark friend paranoia because, like, you spend so much time worrying about, like, the big, ugly Trollocs. And then it turns out this, like, very, like, sweet barmaid Dana who looks like she could be, like, my best friend.
I
Like,
know.
turns out it's just, like, evil. And I'm just like, no.
I was complete, like, it's funny because there's a very similar thing that happens in the book. No spoilers for the book, The Eye of the World, but there's a similar dynamic that happens. They're being chased by dark friends and all over the place. But I just didn't see it coming. Like, I honestly,
Yeah.
I didn't notice any of the signs if there were any, but she just didn't, she came out of nowhere, and I totally bought it once she revealed her, reasons for joining and stuff, or at least following the Dark One. It was really good.
One sign that, like, I feel like I should have seen the first time, but in a rewatch I saw it was I remember, like, the first time I watched episode 3, there was like a weird shot of, like, her side profile, and I was like, that's such an awkward, like, shot of someone. And then I realized, like, oh, it was just, like, supposed to be kind of, like, menacing, but, like, not
Right.
really.
I think I think this is a good block to highlight the way things were staged in that
Yeah.
episode. And again, we're only on the Rand and Matt scene so far, but um, because they introduced Tom, and you don't really know what Tom's thing is at this point, and he seemed menacing, and like he steals money from Matt, and you get this sense of like, okay, this guy's kind of a rogue, or he's
Yeah.
dastardly. And then the Dana stuff just comes out of left field because you're kind of focusing on what's going on with Matt. And they've already painted him as such a dark figure, or at least tending to the darkness, and
Yeah.
so the Dana stuff just comes out of nowhere. And I think, again, it's just that the way that's structured and played out was just really well done. Um, and so yeah, I think there's clips, or there's like you said, there's like little bits of that, I think, when I watched on rewatches of stuff like that, where it was framed in that way, if you were paying
Yeah.
attention. But
Mhm.
I think that just speaks to how well that this block was done.
Yeah, I think the other thing that really stood out to me, which, like, I think it was like really cool in the first two, but then like in this one, the soundscapes and the music and the way that they like are mixing like the way the world sounds and how like the music fits in, and then like
Yeah,
the in-world music versus the like soundtrack is just like so cool. Like, I remember I
right.
really liked the town of, is it Breen Spring? Is that the name of the
Yeah.
town? And then our next block is also kind of one of my favorites, just because it's so like, I feel like if blocks 3 and 4 were like the most like felt like the most book Wheel of Time, I almost feel like block 5 and 6 felt most like show Wheel of Time,
Hmm.
done by Sally Richardson Whitfield, which is kind of our exploration of Tarvalon. They say Tarvalon. Wow,
Yeah.
we're just gonna be when we start talking about the books, I'm gonna just get really confused with like
Yeah.
how to pronounce things.
I think technically Robert Jordan has said Tarvalon. But the audiobooks say Tarvalon, so it
Tarvalon,
gets
yeah,
confusing.
yeah.
This block, I think, definitely is situated at the White Tower mostly in Tarvalon. Um, what did you? I guess my question is, what did you think of the change? Just like as a general question, the change. Um, well, I guess we don't need to necessarily spoil anything, but like the idea that they're focusing so heavy on the White Tower in this episode or these two episodes. Um, so I mean, I guess it's a slight spoiler in that we don't focus a whole bunch on the White Tower in the first book, but
Don't go at all.
put the focus here.
They just know that it's a place
Right,
where Aes Sedai are.
right,
People have mixed feelings about that. I think for my thoughts on it are that this is kind of doing world building for the sake of viewers who haven't read the books and wouldn't get the like pages and pages of just like everybody talking about it everywhere you
right,
go, and the White Tower kind of being this like presence over everyone, like in, I don't know, in like ways that like you can't fully understand, but basically just showing that the Aes Sedai are super powerful. But I don't know, I think it also, like, Daniel Henney and Rosamund Pike are kind of the two main like big bill actors for this. And so having an episode that kind of gives them both a chance to be the stars, especially because I don't know
right.
what they're gonna have to do next season, I think is like kind of just like, I think was also just like a big part of it is just like having like a chance to just develop them and kind of explore their worlds and lives, and kind of just like give like the Emmons Fielders like chances to just be chaotic around them, and they just are just like, okay, whatever.
Right, right.
Fuck them
I
kids.
think yeah, exactly. I mean, I think they do kind of just mess around while while they get to this point in the series, in the season. But yeah, I think I agree with you because I think it was a good idea to spend time here for those reasons. Because I think Daniel Henney and Rosamund Pike as Moraine and Lan are worth focusing on. There's been criticism, especially in episode 5, Blood Calls Blood, where there's a huge focus on the warder, Steppen, sorry, who's warder to Karani, I forget how to
Yep.
pronounce her name, but they spend a whole lot of time focusing on his, uh, you know, I guess the water bond, but more just his relationship or his how he's dealing with the loss of his Aes Sedai. And I don't think it was bad because I think I like again the performances were all really well done, and I liked this actor, which I cannot remember his name at this point, but the actor who plays Steppen, he's quite good, and I do enjoy his performance, but I do question um the focus on him in this part in the series, because I feel like you said, we have the rest of the people from the Two Rivers, they're in this episode, but they're not doing a whole lot. And it kind of takes some of the like spotlight off of them and puts it on to someone who doesn't really have it. Like, this whole arc of his Steppins doesn't pay off for anybody at the end of the season. Not for Lan, not for Moraine, not for any other character.
It's a very
so
Wheel of Time, though, to do that.
Yeah, that's fair. There's definitely always another kind of light spoiler, but every Wheel of Time book, there's always some character that gets POV chapters that isn't necessarily a huge character in the series. But I guess that's what they're doing with that. And I guess I do like, the kind of lore building with the Aes Sedai, the fact that he has to take the ring, like his last duty is to take the ring back to White Tower, which was eerily similar to, like Mount Doom, as he puts the ring into that like fiery like pit or whatever. But I do like it. Also, I love, you get, like you said, Daniel Henney gets to perform a lot more in this and kind of deal with the emotions that he has at the end of the episode, which I think was pretty good. But yeah, so I mean, I think this block is good, specifically because I do enjoy the introduction of the White Tower and Swan, and I think, like you said, it's a good idea to focus on it in this first season more than they do in the books.
Yeah, and also, like, not to nitpick about the book changes, because it's not really what I don't know, it's not really what I care about with adaptations, but there's one very, like, key character that we don't get to meet in this season, and a very large city that we don't get to go to, and a whole different level of government that we don't meet. And like that is like very important for the realm that we just like don't hear about. So that's like my one concern. And I think that if it was something that was included in the show, it would have been like during this part of the block. So I'm curious about why that choice was made. I don't know. Right. Tune in next week if you want to hear me talk actually about the book. But
yes, we'll dive into, I think, more of the comparisons too. But yeah, I think I wonder now at this point. I was hesitant initially because to say, to criticize that, not including that city, that kingdom, but I don't know. I don't know if it was necessary.
Yeah,
but
we're just trusting the process. But I mean, at the same time, I'm kind of just like, how are they going to do this? Like, it's, I don't know. Like,
I mean, if we look at episode 6 a little bit too, I think the choice was they want to get Swan shown. I think kind of if you take it in that way, where there was, they made a decision that we want the Armelin seat to be kind of featured in the promotion of this. And I think it worked because I think, like I said, I think the strongest parts of this is the introduction of Swan and the White Tower politics, I think, kind of gets a little bit introduced here. And also I think it's kind of cool to see Moraine's kind of relationship with these various Aes Sedai politics as well. So I think it was, it's kind of, we're gonna have to see how it pays off in the next season. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of, maybe they just wanted some showy sort of thing to show, like they wanted a cool thing to show, and I think that's why they chose the White Tower, because I think that's probably the most iconic sort of building structure that's in the Wheel of Time, is the White Tower. And I think they might have just decided, we want to show the Armland seat and we want to show the White Tower. And I think they just
Yeah.
decided that. So I don't know if there was much more decision to it than that.
I mean, it was also just fun watching, like getting to watch Leandrin just be Leandrin. Like she ended up being kind of one of my favorite parts of the whole season. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But I'm just
That and
curious.
Alana
Like
as
I'm
well.
just yeah, yeah. I was not expecting to like Alana as much.
Yeah. And then I think a lot of, I mean, maybe the other thing was they wanted to spend more time with those characters as
Yeah,
well. So
because they
I
come
don't,
important.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm just like, why
so
didn't
yeah,
Leanne get more to do then?
yeah. You know, I
It's
think
okay.
again, so I mean, we can bring in the part about COVID. The COVID shutdown happens at the end of this block,
Oh yeah, it
and
does.
episode 6 is, I think it kind of suffers from it. We talked about this when we talked about the end of episode 6, where Barney or Matt does not go into the ways or into the waygate with everyone. He stays awkwardly outside, and that is actually because at this point, at the end of the filming of episode 6, he they have a shutdown for COVID. I think, I don't know how long it lasts, but essentially
Good
Barney
4 or
Harris, who
5
plays Matt,
months.
for, yeah, it was a decent amount of time. And Barney Harris did not return at this point. So they had to rewrite, I'm assuming, parts of episode 6. And also you have to kind of consider maybe they rewrote parts of episode 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 as well, to accommodate having to change the end of episode 6. And kind of fitting that into the rest of the episodes. But so yeah, I mean, that kind of hurt episode 6 for me as well, just because it ends awkwardly, and like I don't know, it just kind of took the momentum out of that episode for me. And I think that isn't their fault necessarily, but that's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, and then I guess it kind of brings us to the final block done by Kieran Donnelly. Is that Kieran Donnelly? I think it's Kieran.
I think Kieran, yeah.
Yeah, Kieran Donnelly, which like, yeah, it kind of episode 7 picks up in the exact same kind of awkward way of them just being like, Matt. And it's just like, oh no, like,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, that's not a lot of time to like kind of figure out how to quickly refinagle everything into something that makes sense, like kind of
Right.
given that, like, I thought it was strange that we didn't, just kind of looking back on episode 6, that we didn't get to like see Matt being his like goofy self again. And I'm wondering if there's like a clip in the vaults
Right.
where like they talk to him and they're like, how are you feeling?
I mean,
But
I
I don't
assume
know.
so, right? Because he has a
Yeah.
couple quips before they go into the Waygate. He has like a couple quips of, what if we changed our mind before they go in.
Yeah.
There's just
And
there's so many lines that he gives that I can
yeah.
remember. So I think that's a
Yeah.
good sign.
Yeah.
But I hope, I know it sucks that we don't get any more of him, but I wish he would have at least been able to finish out the season the way they
Yeah.
intended it. But
Yeah.
yes,
He gave
I mean,
a great performance though.
yeah, I think we get through episode 7, where they're it kind of starts off a little poorly, just because of having to tie that loose end up. And I think it kind of still struggles through the ways, because I think those are my like least favorite parts of that episode of episode 7, the dark along the ways.
Mhm.
It's called the dark along the ways, and they spend like literally like 5 minutes in the ways, and I think that was a mistake. I don't know, I mean, I know they had to cut time, but and maybe a lot of the scenes they had to cut because Matt wasn't there, I don't know, but it just, they didn't spend enough time there. And I think there was way more that they could have gotten from that, from that dynamic, from them being together again. But I think that's the strength of this episode 7, where we get to spend more time with the people from the Two Rivers, sans
Yeah.
Matt. But I think that's the strength of this episode in particular.
I also really liked Faldara and like getting to kind of explore that city because it was so different from anything else we'd seen up
Right.
until that point. And also meeting Min
Yeah.
and getting like those like little moments of Rand and Min and like just seeing their chemistry and just being like, oh, this is gonna be so interesting.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna speak for myself, but I'm gonna also maybe speak for the podcast. I think we're big fans of Men here. And hopefully through our review of the series, we'll prove to you why Min is one of the best characters, and without whom I don't know that, the story would have had a good ending. So I think she's a very important character that I'm happy is included in this first season, because you could have seen a way where they might not have included her in the first season, but I'm
Yeah.
glad we got her. And I think the actress is again really good, and I love how they do the visions for her.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
about to say, I'm so glad they're better than what I imagined
yeah.
because I pictured something really silly. So
And I think the other part about episode 7 is why I rate it so highly is because I I think we talked about the conflict that ends up between Egwene, Rand, and Perrin, um, not really liking it, and I think I still don't. I don't still don't get the point of that. I do understand they wanted tension between them, but it just came off really weird. And I think we're supposed to understand that this is Rand sort of pushing people away because he knows what he has to go and do ultimately, I think. But I still think it was kind of forced. And that's
yeah.
like the one downside to it. But yeah, I think this episode was probably one of my favorites just because I love how they get to interact after they've dealt with what they've done, dealt with through the season. We get to see kind of the culmination of everyone's journey kind of end here. It's at least begin their real arcs. I think is kind of where we kind of leave it, because essentially this is kind of solidifying who they're going to be, at least in some ways. The journey that they've gotten through at this point kind of points them in a direction.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I kind of like how that played out there.
Yeah. And I think you kind of get the like acceptance that they're like they can't go back,
Yeah,
like for each of their own reasons, they can't just like be who they were episode 1
right.
anymore.
So sad.
And yeah,
I,
it's sad,
I
but
just
it's
didn't
like,
want them to fight.
yeah.
But yeah, this episode's good. So I guess in the season finale, if you want to, unless you had more to say on that last one.
Just let's get into the contentious season finale,
Right.
which I'm not mad at after like
Right.
having time to think about it and kind of just I don't know, digest it. I've literally read the ending this morning of the
All
book
right.
and I
Completely different.
understand what they were trying to do, but I also like don't understand. And I feel like the things that didn't make sense from this version of the ending of the first, I guess, act of Wheel of Time, because it's
Right.
not book 1. I mean, it does like mostly follow book 1, but it's not like just the eye of the world in itself.
Right.
I feel like they did a good job. I think that like the main thing were just the changes that they had to make because of COVID and losing Matt were like the kind of main issues that I had, and the fake out deaths.
Fake
Other
out
than that,
this.
I was just like, this is far less confusing.
We got
it
to give
does
them a
and it
quota of
does the
fake
same
out
thing.
deaths. We've had enough. They had a bunch in episode 4. That was a lot of fake out deaths, and then we had 2 or 3 in this episode, and it was just come on, give me
There were at
give me a
least
little bit.
20 fake out deaths in episode 4.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't even remember how many people, but yeah, um, I think it's important to note there's some structure. I think I mentioned this in our review of this episode. Structural sort of problems with how I think the show was presenting the One Power, and how people are interpreting it just from the show aspect. From my understanding, right, and we can use episode 4 as sort of a way to know how they're using the one power in the show. Because Corinne, the Stepan's Aes Sedai, when a Nynaeve does her like Kamehameha super healing wave, she doesn't heal her because she's assumingly dead by that point, right? So at the end of episode 8, where Egwene heals Nynaeve, we're supposed to assume, I think, based on that, I'm just using that's a loose sort of way to stabilize the power a little bit or give it some rules. I'm assuming Nynaeve was not dead at the end, and that's how Egwene was allowed to heal her. But the show does not make that clear. And I know some
She
people
looks
that
dead.
yeah, she looks as dead as everyone else that died. You do, the same way. So
Except her eyes were burnt out.
yeah, that's the one piece, but it's hard to tell that really. But that's just one of the structural things that went wrong, I think. And I think that has a lot to do with COVID. Because I think part of the issue is I think they had to restructure the whole ending fight. I think they decided to, I think they had to rewrite around the fact that they couldn't get enough actors, like extras, to do the battle scene the way they wanted. That's my guess. Just because it's weird how it's structured, where it's like Egwene and Nynaeve and just 3 other people who can channel are able to do so much damage. And again, talking about episode 4, where they battle a full-fledged Aes Sedai, and like a whole group of them that are, with warders, are unable to take on like a group of like, people who are attacking them. It's just, there's just something about that. I feel like that I hope they address in the next season in some way to taper it back down or make it more realistic. Because that's my biggest, I think that was my biggest thing. And I hate that I do that, because it's just, I'm not a strategist. I don't know how to structure like a defense of some wall, but I can just, it just doesn't make sense. Why did they have an inkling that they could do any of this sort of, I don't know, the way she was wielding the one power? You would have thought maybe they wouldn't have done it in the order they did, where they just kind of went out in front of the city, which
I think that the idea was that they were like the last line of defense, and it was supposed to be like an attempt to protect the city and the people who were like still evacuating. But like, I think that you're kind of supposed to assume you were gonna die. Like this is like, they were like, this is the final battle.
I kind of get that too.
We get the callback of like Manetheren, kind of, where they just like stay and defend their city no matter what, kind of thing. And I think that she just didn't know that they were that powerful. And I think control is sort of the thing that we're supposed to think of, because like with the Shan-Chan, you can tell that together, linked up, they're all super powerful, but there's like some level of control. And like, I don't know, but at the same time, like episode 4, it seems like that battle should have been kind of easy, especially given like Moiraine in episode 1 took on all those Trollocs so easily. And so like, I mean, I get like my only like maybe thing that I could say is that Logain weakened them so much, because they were like trying to like shield him and then also channel.
I get the sense too that they were trying to set up that they were taken completely off guard. Like they weren't, they apparently weren't scouting the area and that kind of thing. So in episode 4, when they kind of get attacked by complete surprise. Yeah.
Her like that were very, very close.
Yeah, it's like they broke the wards and like then they were there. So it was like, what's the point of the wards? But yeah, I think the one thing I will say is that I guess my read of that episode where our Amalisa is talking with Agomar, and they're kind of talking, and she's more aggressive, right? She wants to win. She doesn't want to just defend the city for as long as, you know, they can. She keeps saying we have to protect the city and the city won't fall. I took her stand at the end there as being overly, she wasn't like Agomar. Agomar was trying to do the what he could do the most effectively, or the most effective way. She was going out there to just die, I think, or at least throw everything she could against the Trollocs, even though she wasn't defending the city to the last. She was out in front of the city, is what it looked like. And this is again maybe because they couldn't shoot it the way they wanted it, but they were literally just out, from what I understood, in front of the city. So it wasn't even like that the Trollocs got, you know, pushed up against the fortress itself. She was just like, I'm going to take the fight to them instead of defending the city, which is what Agomar was saying that they should have done.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's just a, again, structural problem with that whole battle. But I think that aside, I think my favorite part, and I don't know if you felt the same, but my favorite part is the scene with Rand and Moraine and the Dark One at the Eye of the World. I think that was the part. I mean, you could probably attest to this after having just read the Eye of the World, but that ending in the book is crazy, and I was super worried that the show was going to try to imitate that in some way or do something similar, which I don't think would have worked at all. And I really liked the way that they handled it in the show, which is funny because I thought they would have done something completely different with the stuff in Fall Dara, and that's the stuff that didn't really work for me. But the stuff with Rand was what really worked.
Yeah, I think that was probably what had the most thought put into it. To like, I mean, just like thinking about just timeline and just trying to imagine having no idea what anything of like the production of the show was like. Like, I feel like that's probably one of the things that like they were like, this is the probably like the roughest part of the Eye of the World, and this is like how like anyone who hasn't read the books and just happens to be tuning into this show is gonna like experience this like big reveal and like moment.
Yeah. And
they're like, we gotta fix it because like it's just like too weird to like translate to TV.
So. And you know, part of my effort, at least in hyping up how weird this is, isn't to turn people away from the books. I think it's worth reading it. Just to, I mean, if you found the first season interesting and you haven't read the books, definitely read the book and just prepare yourself for insanity at the end. But it's insanity that like it's wrapped up really well at the end. So I say it's insane, but like at the end, we get to a similar place that we are in the book here or in the show. So it's not to mean that it's a bad ending. It's just it requires a lot of imagination to kind of follow what's going on.
I do have a concern for season 2, kind of given what they take out of the ending from the book, but I won't get into it in case someone hasn't read it. But I'm wondering, because it's a big part of kind of the next stage in Rand's journey, and so I'm a little worried.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so I guess I think ultimately, I think the ending works for me. I think it was the last episode was actually my least favorite, and I think I wouldn't say it was bad, but it was just like meh for me in the middle. I really liked the stuff with Rand. I just had too many issues with the stuff that was happening in Fall Dara. I honestly, in some ways, I wish like they just didn't show that battle. I don't know. And, you know, throughout the season too, and part of it, you know, we get, and I kind of neglected to talk about my favorite character so far, but because we don't really get him, you know, we don't get a whole bunch of Perrin, and I wanted more. But to be fair, he's not super prevalent in the book. There's more that happens with him, I guess, just because it's a book, and you know, but at least most of it's in his head. But in the show, it just doesn't really do anything. So in the end, kind of slaps slaps you in the face a little bit with it. He doesn't get anything to do.
Spooked by
And
a
they kind
bat.
of, yeah. And I think part of that again is the part of, I think that was meant to be something between Matt and Pat and Fane, but I think they just had to rewrite it for Parent to do, which maybe was better for his character because I don't know what he would have done otherwise, honestly. So, but I think ultimately though, some of that stuff really hurt me for this last episode. But I think particularly I like the stuff with Moraine and Rand because I think if you've read some of the other books, they have such an interesting relationship that doesn't really get explored yet, which I think we get hints of in their interaction. So pretty much everything to do with Rand in this episode, I really liked his introduction of his mom, and in the other episode, and then
Age of Legends.
and then Luce Theron in this one as the cold opens were both really good.
Yeah.
So
I love Rand and Moraine's. Like, I feel like Rand is always just like, I hate her. Where is she?
Right.
Like, I need her.
I mean, like, I think, they do it so well. That's, again, the performances are so well done. Like, you can see both those characters, Rand and Moraine, really well in this episode. And I think we're going to get a good season 2 out of that. And that's kind of where I keep coming back to. I'm just like, yeah, I didn't get everything I wanted in the story, but I got these characters come to life. So that kind of that's why I ended up so positive with it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I feel like I just fell for the cast and the world, and just like I feel invested, and
Right.
I know that I'm gonna go into season 2 with no idea what's gonna happen, even like having read
right.
At least up to like where I think they're gonna go, and I'm just very excited.
I guess what I have a bunch of questions that I don't know if I'm gonna go over every one of them, but I'm curious. What did you? I don't think I have this listed, but what did you think of the Shan Chan's sort of introduction here? Because it's the way it's played out in the show seems like. Well, I guess I'm curious. What do you think of their introduction? What do you get? What impression do you have of this group of people?
I mean, first of all, random.
Exactly.
You're just like, okay, all this stuff happened kind of on the east side of the world. Like, we've done this like huge travel, like northeast together, right? And then they're like somewhere far west, and then you just see all these ships. I don't know. I thought that was like super random, but I also was like super excited to see them. So I was really excited that they were like in this season, just like even previewed. They're terrifying, and it makes me, I kind of think about, I don't know, some of the things that happened with like the Children of the Light, which like were like super mild in the books, and then the Shan Chan are just like not. So I'm like really scared for like what's gonna happen. Like, I feel like it's just gonna be like, I don't know, trigger warning, I guess, for people. Maybe.
I had a bunch of friends who were like completely like they had no idea what to expect of that, and they were excited for the next season for that introduction of these characters. So I'm not gonna say more because I have like opinions, like spoilers that I think about it, but I think the introduction was it makes me think that they're going to be really evil. So I don't know if that's what they're going to be, but just like you said, like the helmets that that some of the dudes are wearing, and then the weird muzzle on the people who could channel.
Mike's on the ship, like it's like, don't trip and fall on that ship.
I know, exactly. But I thought it was a good setup. Hopefully we get I'm hoping for a 10 episode season next time. So
I'm like dying to know what was cut. Like, I don't think that because of COVID they got to like film extra stuff so we could get like a Lord of the Rings style extended edition one day.
Yeah,
but like
I think I think Rafe, the showrunner, commented to someone's request to some sort of Rafe cut.
Yeah, he confirmed no
Not
Rafe
gonna,
cut.
yeah, no Rafe cut.
Maybe they'll do it
Which
for the
is
next
fine.
seasons.
Maybe. I'm hoping. I think this season was very successful. Like at least for Amazon. So hopefully maybe they can get 10 episodes, and if not, maybe at least get fully completed episodes that aren't interrupted by a cast member leaving or COVID shutdowns, which I think
Yeah.
might be the case because I think they're almost done with filming
Yeah,
the
it
second
seemed
season.
like from just Instagram following all of the cast, because I just am like obsessed with all of them now.
Right.
It seems like they had like a little holiday break. Daniel Henney, his dog has a Instagram, so I'm now following his dog
Oh.
on Instagram. I don't remember what his dog's name is, but so like he like had like a say goodbye to my dog post. I was like, oh. So I think that they're like all headed back to finish filming.
Okay.
And
That's
like
cool.
people aren't saying that season 3 was confirmed, but I thought that I heard that it was like gonna happen already. But
I feel like
I
they're
don't
going to
know.
commit to it at this point.
Yeah.
We'll see, but I can't imagine they would let those rumors fly around if they weren't going to. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, I guess they couldn't shut them down before season 2 came out, at least. So
Yeah. I'm a little annoyed about the lack of Donald Finn like images
no
in all the social media.
anywhere.
There's 2 pictures. This is like, I need more. I want to see him hanging
we
out with everyone.
we linked a short, or we linked to a site that has a short film that Donald Finn, who's going to be the new Matt in season 2, um, in a film that he does, that I think if he pulls from some of this area for Matt, I think will be really good in his performance there. So I would go check that out. I think it's linked on our last video on episode 3 of The Great Honey. But
I can try to remember to include it in this one too. Maybe we'll find those 2 pictures too.
Yeah, there's a couple pictures
together
floating around.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, I guess if you want to do a quick like sort of segment of hopes for the second season, and then maybe I'll ask some questions that I had just about the series that for the season 1 finale. I think more so just kind of generally season questions, but our hopes for the rest of the show, or at least season 2. My hope, and I'm kind of thinking that we're going to get here because I can't see how they don't, but I want to have the group come back together in like a really significant way, and I want them to spend time with them together. That's my big hope for season 2, because they seem kind of separated by the end of this first season. Pretty much everyone is separated except Moraine and Lan, but I kind of want them to come together in a big way in the second season.
Yeah, I agree. That was what I was gonna say, is another reunion and like more time. I also want them to just slow down, somehow figure out how to like slow the pace down, just like a smidge. I feel like that would be that just to like let the characters breathe, maybe like a longer like
maybe an extra episode or 2. Who knows?
Yeah.
I hope they could get
love that.
A big premiere, like a 2-hour premiere or something, if they can't
even
get
90 minutes.
Yeah, that would be really nice. So Amazon and Rafe Judkins, if you're listening, as I know you take you're doing a great job. Just add a couple extra hours or episodes, please.
Yeah, and if you're looking for extras,
right? Yes,
I would love to drink some ale in a inn somewhere.
I think I saw a casting call once where they were asking for any sort of musicians that spoke German or some language that I'm not familiar with, but I think it was German. And
you were like, Guten Tag.
I guess, exactly. I will do whatever you need. I'll say whatever you need. I don't want to do any injury to the people of Germany, but okay. So I think in lieu of our normal Armland Decree and Gleeman breaks, I had a couple questions. And I don't know if you want to ask, you can ask me the same questions or if you had some too. But I'm kind of curious just for your own takes on how you felt about some things or where you think certain things are going to go. I think we kind of touched on some of these, but one that I was kind of curious, and I think this works for since you just finished Eye of the World. Do you think, and maybe we kind of touched on it, but do you think anything was cut from that book that you would have wished they kept in? And I think you mentioned there was a place that they cut out. Is there anything else, or is that the main thing?
I think that there's also some helpful information for Perrin that was also cut out. I think was another.
Yeah.
Those were my kind of two cuts that I think were important, but I have a feeling that they're kind of just like, this will have more time for it.
Right.
At another point. I just forgot to mute my phone.
Yeah, you good. You kind of have to use your you have to use your Aes Sedai sort of way with words to get around spoiling stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I want people, you should still read the books, but I think that it was like overall pretty faithful. And I think that there was also something else at the beginning of the Eye of the World that I wish they kind of included, but it also makes sense why they cut it because it's not really that consequential to anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's true. I think, and just to answer that, because I do have my thing is like, I wish we would have gotten more time with Loyal. I don't know if that counts as necessarily a cut because we did get Loyal, but
yeah,
we didn't get nearly enough time with them. And I guess you could say the same with Tom too. But I think those kind of hurt, honestly. I thought, initially I kind of expected we wouldn't get as much of them as we did in the book, but I kind of, in retrospect, think it would have helped a little to have them around a little longer. But I'm biased because Tom is a fellow Gleeman, so we stick together. All right, here's a good one. Do you think, after all is said and done, was Swan actually tricked by the Dark One to go to the Eye? Was that the Eye? I don't even know if it was. I don't know if it was confirmed.
That's true. All we know is Rand recognized it.
Right.
I think that she was tricked, though. I think she and Moiraine were both tricked.
Yeah. I think so, too. I don't know how clear it was because I think we talked about this, too, about the dreams. We're assuming we'd get more dreams, but we never did. And Moiraine says that the dreams could be bad. The Dark One has gotten into the dreams. So it's funny to me that she trusted Swan's dream, even after saying that. But yeah, I think we can say that definitively. But it wasn't expressly said. But let's see. All right, here's another one for the ending too. Is Moiraine shielded or stilled? And
I think she's shielded.
This isn't a spoiler, but stilled is basically the Aes Sedai or a female Chandler's version of being gentled, which is the same thing that happened to Logain. So basically, when you get cut off from the one power, if you're a man, it's called gentled, and if you're a woman, it's called stilled. But she is effectively cut off from the one power, at least that's what she says. But I will counter that we see her with the same sort of shielding, right as the Dark One puts this webbing of shielding on her at the end of the episode 8. That seems very similar to what was put on to Logain in episode 4. So I would contend that she was actually shielded and not stilled. But
we also still can't lie.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And if Moiraine could lie, she would.
Yeah.
You can tell, like, she's just like always trying to get out of lying, like the whole time, which I thought was a funny like thread throughout the show of like a character trait. Is just like her just trying to figure out like, how can I lie?
She says, like, I think at one point, I wish I could lie.
So
Um,
yeah, I think that
okay,
was kind of, I think she's shielded.
I agree.
I like this question you have about colorism in the show. I'd be
Oh
happy to
yeah,
talk about it. I think yes. Like I think that it's pretty obvious that like the darker skinned actors of color tend to be cast as bad guys, or in Loyal's case, like not human, which is like my biggest complaint with Disney is like, please just let the black characters be human for a little
right.
while longer. I think yes. I mean, it's like hard because it's like one of those, it's like a show where you're like, wow, this is like the first time that like there's been like this much diversity in a fantasy show that I can think
Right.
of, except maybe Merlin, not really, but
Yeah.
or like the Rogers and Hammerstein, like Cinderella. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have, yeah. I think they do in Merlin particularly, like I don't know, it's just more obvious, but it's a British show. So that's a
Yeah.
but I guess technically I don't know. I guess this isn't I don't know. I guess that doesn't really matter for this series since it's so international. But but yeah, I think it was the issue of colorism in that the darker skinned actors were being cast in this way. I didn't necessarily see the issue up front, and so I was kind of ignorant to it. But then when I saw it, it made me rethink it and kind of examine some of that. And I kind of agree with you. Yeah, I think now in hindsight, even though I love the actor that plays Loyal and I love the actor that plays Valda, and I think who's the
Hot
other
on Fane.
Patton Fane. Yeah, it's the other character that I really think I love all those characters. So
Yeah.
I love their performances, and I don't at the same time don't want to limit color or people of color from roles just based on arbitrarily what line of the morality arc in the show they're on. Um, but at the same time, I kind of have to, you know, maybe they should think about that going forward. I think, but
Yeah. They have a lot of opportunities to like cast dark-skinned actors in many important roles in the future too. So I just hope that they do that. And I think that
yeah,
I don't know if once again, Rafe, if you're listening, like I know you've been really great about like, I don't know, responding to like the fandom and like being like a part of it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like kind of an interesting thing to talk about. And one of my friends pointed out also like there's a lot of kind of Orientalism, especially in Tarvalon, of like kind of
hmm
the like Muslim or like Islamic looking things that are like throughout the city. I'm not very like knowledgeable, but I don't know, it's just like
right,
another thing to point out. But nothing's
yeah.
perfect.
I think there's you can almost write a dissertation about you know this kind of concept, like especially like the sort of the idea of the Wheel of Time and how like Robert Jordan wrote with all these cultures kind of clashing together in this world, and it makes sense in the Wheel of Time because the breaking ruined the world, and not unlike what might happen with global warming in our world, but like it pushes people and cultures together in a way that they might not have immersed themselves otherwise. And I think you can see that in some of the regions that kind of form, even though they have some similarities in the regions in the Wheel of Time. And I think the show is trying to show that. So it's kind of hard because there's no show that's out there like this that has the
Mhm.
amount of diversity in it, at least that I recall. So it's kind of hard because on the one hand, I think you can criticize these actors, that the way that they've casted some of the villains, but on the other hand, you have to commend them for kind of going out of their way to be inclusive. So it's hard, but yeah.
Especially like kind of going back to our early discussion about book cloaks, a lot of the criticism that falls on the show from like that side of the fandom has been about the diversity and kind of the way that they've kind of like included it into the story and like adding in queerness and all of that. And so yeah,
Right.
it's a very interesting, I don't know. I'm excited to like keep talking about it. And that's part of why I'm so excited for season two, is just because I'm like so
Right.
curious how it's gonna like continue as the world expands and like
Yeah.
more people watch it and kind of grapple with what's in it. Because I don't know, when I read the books, I was kind of worried about how that was all going to play out, just because it's like, I don't know, it's a book from the 90s and things are
Yeah.
messy. And
Yeah. Some, especially notoriously, the relationships are quite weirdly structured
yeah,
in the
yeah.
book. I will say some of them are really good, some of them are really classic, but some of them are really problematic. So the show has an opportunity to build some good relationships where they can kind of just get away with erasing some of the dynamics in the relationships that exist in the book.
Yeah.
And I hope they
Yeah,
do. So
I'm excited. I was kind of getting that vibe with our friend Perrin where I left off
mhm.
before my reread. I won't say anything more, but I was like,
Right.
duh.
Perrin. Um, okay, so the last question, I'll end with this question because I think we kind of touched on it again on one of, I think in the last episode, but Pat and Fane, we get, I think we talked about how we hear him in various episodes. Obviously, we see him whistling in the first episode. And if you go back through all the various episodes, particularly in episode 2, we hear that whistle again. We don't see Pat and Fane, but we hear that whistling. And I watched that episode, this scene again. It actually wakes Matt up, the whistling does. And when he's in Shadar and he goes and finds the dagger. And we also hear him other times whistling. I can't remember every episode he's whistling in, but we definitely see him and again hear the whistling in when they're in fall in Tarvalon. And of course, we hear him in the ways as well, whistling. We also see him come out of the ways.
Yeah.
And at the end of the series, he
And we
has the
see him in the
dagger.
ways.
We do see him in the ways, yes. And seemingly, again, not marred by the Dark One, not marred by the Trollocs or Fades or anything. The Fades listen to him. So he clearly is in league with the Dark One by the end. But what were they getting at with the whole whistling part of it? Like, so there's a two-part question. What were they in your mind? And I don't think there's really any spoilers because they might be doing something different with him than the books. Maybe not though. So I'll leave it vague. But I don't know. It's kind of like he clearly is following them all the way through, right? And somehow he gets the dagger. That's just a question mark because we have no idea what Lan did with the dagger after Moraine separates Matt from the dagger. But Pat and Fane has the dagger at the end of the episode and stabs Loyal with it. And he leaves with the dagger. And yes, he shouldn't have done that. But he leaves with the Horn of Valyr and he also has the dagger at the end of the season.
Allegedly.
Was that his plan all along? That's my thing. Like, what was he doing? Was he trying to capture them? Because he didn't seem to want to capture Perrin. He just followed them and took the dagger and the horn and left. So curious. I don't know what to make of it, but I've kind of question for you.
I mean, I feel like at this point, if Padon Fane is like in some way like communicating with the Dark One, he knows that Rand isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So like he can't like do something like bring Rand to the Dark One because he's already there with them.
Right.
He knows that like the other Taviran have like their roles to play, but he's just like what's he gonna do? Like grab Perrin because he's like, I don't know, like way shorter than him.
Right.
um, but having the horn would be a very big strategic like win for the dark side.
for the very reason where it's all we know about it is that the dragon needs it for the last battle, so that he has it is seemingly a problem for the dragon.
Is it Did they explain that the horn like calls all the like
I
heroes
think so.
back to
They
like your
say
side? Yeah.
they say what it does, like vaguely, but yeah, they do say like it calls all the heroes of that have died back to
Their
fight in the last
turnings.
battle.
Yeah.
So I don't know what people. No one really made any sense of that. I don't think that didn't have any idea about what was going on, but yeah. So I mean, I think it was a. I don't know again if that was an issue of just the writing for the last episode. Just kind of had to cut some stuff, but I do think it was weird that his. I don't know what the point of the whistling was. If it was just that he knew all along that they would end up. Maybe he was guiding them towards Faldar, but how did he
I think it
know?
was just to like have us remember that he's like following them in some way, like
Yeah.
some like Easter egg, like just someone's following you. Like
My question,
maybe
and I'm
you
I'm
think,
wondering too, if maybe part of why he was only interacting with Matt is because he wanted Matt to get the dagger for some reason. Because he does
yeah,
push him to the dagger. And
he
maybe the
does.
dagger was supposed to be something. I don't
Oh,
know.
was that his shadow then? Like in that episode, like
I'm
in
assuming
Shadow Logoth?
the only thing I have to go off of is like the whistling wakes him up and kind of seemingly kind of guides him. Doesn't actually, like, once he wakes up, I think it stops, but he follows that and the shadow kind of like blends in. So it's like, you know, I think it's supposed to be connected to Padam Fane in some way, but we don't know exactly. But yeah, I think the guy who plays Padam Fane is really, really intriguing. And I just again wish we had more time with him because I liked his monologue at the end, even though it didn't make any sense that he just left Perrin there after killing everyone else. But I
Yeah,
mean, he did say they all had a part to play, so maybe he didn't want to interrupt the whatever part Perrin had to play. But
yeah. My one spoiler before watching episode 8, because I know they posted all those like those they leaked all those photos, was him sitting on Agelmar's throne with the horn in his
okay,
box, which we still haven't seen the horn, so I don't think he has it. But that's my theory.
we're gonna make you take some bets on what the horn actually is gonna look like because there's the classic like French horn like curl sort of thing, or if we're gonna get like the sort of trumpet sort of idea. I'm curious because
I'm thinking like a round
like a French
skinny
horn.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Not like
see.
a French horn, not like the French horn like you see today that's like really clunky, but
Oh, you mean like kind of like
just
the
like
horn
a
of Gondor?
yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll draw one and put it on Twitter or something.
Or we should do a Twitter poll to see what people think it's gonna look like. But but yeah, so that's season one. Um, I guess we will figure out what we're gonna do in the next episode, and be kind of eagerly waiting for episode two, or season two, which we have no idea when it's gonna come out. But I
Yeah.
did I read some article that it's gonna come out. It got delayed because of the Lord of the Rings show. So I don't know what that means exactly, but it does mean that we will be waiting longer than we could have, I guess.
Says on the wiki page that you sent me a link to that it'll be 8 episodes. No.
Oh, it
Hopefully
does
they
say that.
reconsider.
Reconsider it. They might get stuck with two, or they might get stuck with 8 episodes. It might just be, they're gonna just say that's a formula that worked. Hopefully they could get like maybe at least one or two longer episodes or something then.
Cool. Well, I guess next week maybe we'll do like the start of a review of The Eye of the World and kind of talk about that. And then maybe if there's any news about the show,
Right.
we'll give you guys the details because they're so hard
Right.
to find. I'm just kidding.
There's castings we could talk about. Maybe we'll get some more by the time we do the episode. But
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll I guess for next week, if you could get through, if you're still trying to get through the first book, The Eye of the World, we will give spoilers, but we will also kind of just dive into that plot and kind of do a quick, sort of summary, and then dive into some, particular aspects of it. I think when we talked about how we want to do it, the series is really, it's got a whole bunch of stuff. It's a fantasy series that's delves into so much, but I think we both share an interest in the characters, and I kind of think that's what we're going to focus on, just to each character's arc through the book. So we'll kind of hopefully have that neatly wrapped up for you guys in the next episode.
Yeah. We'll figure out how we want to do it. That's the plan.
Yes, exactly.
Well, until next time, y'all. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on our this is the fourth episode. Oh, we have it written down correctly. Episode of The Great Honey. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at Great Honey Pod, and Great Honey on TikTok, and The Great Honey anywhere you can find podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We'll be releasing new episodes every Wednesday. Back on a better schedule, especially now that I'm done with grad school. And yeah, until then, see you around. Until then, see you around. I'm sorry that was so awkward.
It's good.